hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Bojarinov. You can find me on Twitter at Russian98, and I am with
Conner Rowntree. You can find me on Twitter at The Sport Tree.
And of course, you can find both of us at Jablam Hockey on Twitter. All right, before we get into our trending now, what do we have this episode? Well, we've got a Team ISO with Mark Warner from the Vegas Hockey Podcast. We're also going to be doing What's Wrong, What's Right with a new segment. So we're going to talk about, some players and some teams, some managers in this episode and even later on in this segment. And we break down what's wrong and what's right with them. And of course, we've got a bit of a Halloween special episode. So we'll talk about costumes and some crazy cool things to do with Halloween, right, Connor?
Some scary NHL players.
Yeah. And we'll finish up with some Saturday's picks, how we did last week. And so we're going to name some games that we like to see this Saturday. But first, trending now.
Trending now, Team Canada released their jerseys today, and they're ugly. That's basically all you need to know. When you put the two sleeves together at the front, it actually looks like it forms a Christmas tree. Hopefully we'll be able to pull this up on the screen for you to look at right now. The red and black, it just looks out of place. I don't mind the white with the red, but I gotta say, there hasn't been a good Canadian jersey in a long time. I'm wearing my personal favorite from last decade. I like the black and gold with the red says Canada on it. Johnny T on the back. Pure goal scorer, second in the league in scoring right now, actually. Just slide that in there.
Just under Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
I've never liked any of them, in my opinion.
I think this is sharp.
I don't like. You can't see it too well, but I don't like this stuff really around it. The rest of it looks okay.
I like the gold, the gold.
I don't know why Canada would have black in their jersey. I guess to be edgy, but I mean it's.
Well, I don't mind when you go with the all black alternate like this, but when it's red and black instead of red and white, where the white jerseys are white with red trim, it looks off, but not as awful as the American jerseys. The American jerseys, it looks like, those old rocket popsicles that you used to...
Yeah, the red, white, and blue.
Imagine one of those melted in your hand. That's what the American jersey looks like. They got weird colors going down. It looks like a peacock, maybe, kind of going down the side with the melted colors going. There's some fades going on. Anyway, check out the jerseys and get on my side and just, God, they're ugly.
You know what? I might write a blog about my all-time top hated, maybe, national jerseys.
The last national jersey I can remember really liking was I believe the 2014 Swiss jerseys. The Swiss with just the all white and then the red banner and then the cross.
Yes. That I kind of did like that one. I don't mind the classic Sweden, the
crowns,
the three crowns, Tre Kroners. And then I think there's one or two Russian ones that I kind of like.
Well, they're usually the same with the eagle and the crest on the front.
Yeah, it's cool. But otherwise, there's not many that I like.
No.
But check them out on jablamhockey.com. They'll be in our game notes, the American and Canadian jersey. All right, time for this week's Team ISO. Of course, this is where we specifically talk about one team, and we go right into the hockey universe, and we get a better analysis from guys who are following the team quite closely, or at least better than us. And this week's guest is Mark Warner, and he is the host of the Vegas Hockey Podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Vegas Hockey Pod, and of course on their website, VegasHockeyPodcast.com. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Cool. So let's get right into it. The first interesting news that everybody's talking about, of course, is Shepachov. So he wants to play, doesn't want to play for the team. I know at the beginning, after training camp, and they're kind of stuck with all the guys on their roster, so they send him down to the Chicago Wolves, right? Yep. And then they finally bring him up. He plays just the one game?
Yeah, just one.
And he scores a goal. And then they're like, okay, we're going to send him back down. He doesn't obviously want to be sent back down. And now I think it seems like there might be a mutual agreement for him to go maybe back to the KHL. But again, if he has to do that, he has to probably repay that $2 million signing bonus.
I think he gets to keep about $80,000.
Okay.
There's a prorated amount to it, and each day he doesn't report, it gets less and less. So
yeah,
something like that. Yeah. We covered this on our show a little bit, and I said then, and I'll say now, that I think George McPhee should just take the Stevie Y approach to Jonathan Drouin and let him sit until he reports. That they explained it to Peter Bojarinov, his agent, when he went down the first time, what they wanted him to do. There's 3 roster-exempt players on the roster: Shea Theodore, Alex Tuck, and Vadim Shipachyov. So, because of the glut of defensemen they took in the expansion draft and the failure to move those pieces, George McPhee's hands were tied. There wasn't anything they could do. He was not a standout in training camp, and therefore, he drew the short straw. When you sign a contract, you honor the contract. Now, this goes back years and years. I'm sure you guys know the Russian. This goes back to, if the Russians don't get what they want, they're all going to bolt back to the K, right? So I'm a big fan of the way Stevie Y handled Jonathan Drouin, and with, all credit to Jonathan Drouin, he did finally report. He went down, he played, he worked on what he was supposed to work on, and rejuvenated himself, and eventually, was traded to Montreal. So for me, I would hardline it, but the way the team's playing, I don't think they're going to miss him. And if he's going to be a problem in the room, everybody else wants to be here.
Yeah.
If you friends from Buffalo, and if you don't want to be there, then I guess get the heck out. I don't know how you guys are with language on your podcast.
Yeah. No, it's all right.
That's pretty much where I am with the Shipachyov thing. If he doesn't want to report, I'd let him sit. I'd make him dangle, and if it came to it, then I guess you could terminate the agreement. But then once you pass through unconditional waivers, you run the risk of him coming back and signing with another team.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's not what George McPhee wants to see happen.
Yeah, it's hard to compare it because Duran was, say, maybe a decade younger, and some of them are when they're dealing with those contracts, whereas Shipachyov is going to be...
He's 30 right now.
Yeah, he's going to be 31 soon. Yeah. So, and of course, he can always go back to Mother Russia, and that's kind of, maybe his thing, or that's where he grew up, so it's more of a money thing maybe for him. All right, let's go on to Connor. Would you want to talk about?
Yeah, Mark, the Vegas Golden Knights, just in general, best start to an expansion team in the history of the league. They're 8-3 right now. Lost the back-to-back games over on Long Island and then in the Big Apple, Manhattan. But what do you credit this amazing start to? Because it's not just one facet of the game. They've gotten great goaltending through 4 different starting goaltenders now. The team is just clicking on all cylinders, firing on all cylinders. What do you attribute that start to?
Well, if you haven't seen them play, the very first thing I'll say about them is this team has an extraordinarily high compete level. They battle for every single puck. They get sticks in the passing lanes. They get bodies in the passing lanes. They don't quit on any play. There's no straight-legged coasting into the bench for line changes. And desire and hustle in hockey go a long way, as we all know. You can overcome efficiencies if you're playing smart in your system and you play as hard as you can. That's number one thing that I see with this team. Number two, if you want to do a little bit of analytics, throughout the homestand, they were able to obviously control their face-off centers and their matchups in the dot, and they were, until I think the Colorado game, they were second in the league in face-off percentage and first winning defensive zone face-offs. Obviously, when you're an expansion team, you want to have the puck, you want to get it out of your zone, and you want to control play, because once you do turn the puck, turn the puck over, bad things can happen, as we saw in New York 2 times in a row. So I think that, and I think Gerard Gallant, the system that he has these guys playing is there's more speed on this team than we thought there was going to be. There's more skill on this team than we thought there was going to be. So winning those defensive zone faceoffs. Nate Schmidt's been playing really great. Colin Miller's been playing really great. Braden McNabb has been playing really good. They're able to get their breakouts crisp, clean, and out of their own zone and keep the pressure off the goaltenders for the most part. So I think we might be seeing a little bit of that change. They're down to 9th in face-off percentage now. Obviously, being on the road for 2 games, the home team gets to set the face-off matchups, and they're slipping a little bit, but they're still doing very well in the face-off dot. And starting play with possession, I think, has been a big key for this team. If you want to ask me about the goaltending, I don't have an answer for you. I've been calling it if you guys are familiar with this movie Spinal Tap, they had a curse on their drummers, and I don't know if this is the Spinal Tap curse revisited on the goalies or what it is we're looking at, but I guess all credit has to go to the goaltending coach, because Malcolm Subban was the throwaway from Boston, obviously, and he comes in and gets the star of the week. Then he gets hurt, and then Dance comes up. He gets star of the week, and now we're on the minor league backup with the Kamloops goaltender sitting second fiddle on the bench. So I don't have an answer for that. But I think it starts with desire and compete. Everyone here seems to be enjoying each other. The room seems to be solid. And I think the system that Gallant has them playing is going forward, and winning and keeping possession of the puck as much as possible would, basically add up to why they're overachieving to what we all thought they would do.
Now, Mark, I know you don't really have an answer for the goaltenders, but as you said, they've been through Fleury. They're the face of the franchise after the expansion draft. Then they got Malcolm Subban. He's down. Das comes in. He's got leading the league in both save percentage and goals against. Now you're on to Maxim Lagasse. Do you think this team can keep this pace up with Lagasse in the pipes?
No, I don't, actually. I think what we saw last night in New York. I'm gonna give him a pass on the Islanders game, because he comes in cold. It's his first game, and he admitted afterwards that the jitters were there and the butterflies were in full force. But we gave him the lead last night 4-2 going into the third period, and it definitely wasn't his fault. Perron took a bad penalty. They score the power play goal, and then momentum starts to switch in the game. But sometimes you need your goalie to make the huge, timely save, and I'm not sure that he's ready to do that yet.
All right, but is it bring your kid to work day when you have a kid that looks like Dylan Ferguson? No? All right. Let's just move on then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Me and my wife were watching the game last night, and she's like, he's 12.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into some other.
I was making a joke with her about Ferguson. I was like, I'll bet you $100 right now that when he goes back to Kamloops, he asks if he can keep his jersey.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into some other guys near his age, and that's prospects. First, Cody Glass. Of course, he went back to Portland for the Winterhawks in the WHL, and he's killing it again. He's leading the team.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he's 21 points. What type of player is he, and where do you think he'll fit in with Vegas in the next year or two?
Well, I saw him play in the development camp here, and he seemed. I don't know if the situation was too big at the time, or he just seemed a little bit uncomfortable. As camp progressed, he seemed to get more and more comfortable with the situation, the surroundings, and maybe being the first overall pick for an expansion franchise and being bombarded with media from that perspective was maybe a little bit too much from him. As camp wore on, we saw in a couple of the preseason games that he got into, he's got a really nice awareness offensively of where his teammates are on the ice. He made a few no look through the crease cross ice passes that there's guys in the NHL they can't do. So I look for him to be, in a couple of years to come up, and I think more of a playmaker type than the sniper type, although he's scoring like crazy right now. But I think translated to the NHL, his game is going to be using his offensive awareness, using his skill to make his teammates around him better, and I think he has a real good chance to do that.
All right, that's cool. Cody Glass there, the 6th overall. But let's now go to Nick Hague, the 2nd rounder, 34th overall, now playing for the Steelheads. He's playing pretty well for the Steelheads. He's a big, huge, lumbering kid with a booming shot. And, of course, he's got 6 goals already. When do you think he could maybe enter in for the Golden Knights? In a couple of years?
He might be a couple years. I'd like to see him finish his juniors and then get a year or two in the A.
Yeah.
One thing we all noticed here during camp was that his skating needs. I don't want to say quite a bit of work, because with I think the 16th pick they took the Brannerstrom kid, who's really they're high on as coming up. He's a little bit undersized as a defenseman, but he's dynamic offensively, puck moving style offensive defenseman, and that's not going to be Nick Hague's game when he does come to Vegas. He's going to be the stay at home type defenseman. Like you said, big kid, got to work on his skating a little bit. Big shot from the point. He did have and one thing that I'll say about George McPhee and all the prospects, and even the players that they took on in the expansion draft, is that they all have that on-ice awareness that I think we're seeing on the big club, and we saw in the development camp that Nick Hague has a really nice awareness defensively of where he should be and what he should be doing. And that's one thing that did stand out to me was his hockey IQ seemed to me anyway for a young kid to be a lot higher than a lot of the kids in the camp.
Yeah, I think I saw a couple of games already this season with Steelheads, and yeah, he's got to pick up his speed, but his awareness, and I think some of his big physical skills are really going to be a good help for him in his career. And his booming shot, as long as he can get it on net, I think he's going to get a fair bit of goals. And he might need to get more power play time too to get those. And I don't know if I see that, so we'll see.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. So
I'll tell you one kid who really stuck out at the camp and then all the way through the preseason was Nick Suzuki.
Yeah, okay.
He seemed to be just farther along in his development. His hands are fantastic. His stick handling and again I'll say on ice awareness. He was a big standout. He seemed comfortable with his surroundings. He came right in and people wanted to say, is he going to make the team? Well, no, he's not going to make the team this year. But if anybody is going to be ready soon out of the forward core, I myself would put Nick Suzuki right now anyway ahead of Cody Glass myself, just from what I was able to see here at the practice facility.
All right. Thanks for your thoughts, Mark. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll see if Suzuki can edge out Hague for a spot earlier into the roster in the coming years.
Glass.
You think Glass is going to be coming in sooner?
I think so.
Yeah.
I like him.
Obviously, 6th overall. All right. Again, Mark, thanks for coming on the show. You can find Mark on Twitter at Vegas Hockey Pod, and of course on his website, VegasHockeyPodcast.com. Check JablamHockey.com, and we'll link you right to their website. Thanks again for coming on the show, Mark.
Thanks, Peter. Connor, thanks for having me on. We'll talk to you guys down the road.
Cool. All right, time for our new segment, What's Wrong and What's Right With? All right, Connor, let's let you introduce how the segment works.
Well, here's what we do. We take a couple of teams, players, management, coaches, basically around the franchise, and we'll tell you who's doing something right and who's doing something wrong. Start off with someone doing something right. Look no further than, Andre Vasilevsky down in Tampa Bay. Pardon me, I just choked on my own uvula. That's embarrassing. But hey, it happens. Vasilevsky just broke the record for the most wins in October. Tied the record for the most wins in October in the history of the NHL. He's got the goal support, and he's playing some pretty lights out hockey here, Peter.
Yeah, you were contemplating if it's the team or if it's him. I'm going to go with Vasilevsky. I picked him at the beginning of the season to win the division, and it's pretty much because you need your goalie to be that good. And I predicted that he will, and I stole him from somebody in our hockey pool too. 2014 is it, I think, when he got the gold medal for his team in the World Championships, I believe, with a stellar 0.5 goals against average and a .985 save percentage. And then I think the same thing later in the year for the juniors, also got the bronze for them and had 1.83 goals against average and an amazing save percentage always. He's been a stellar for Team Russia in international hockey.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Obviously, his international stage and what he's done this season thus far. But I still don't think that you can give all the credit to Vasilevsky. His goal scoring that he's had, the system in front of him. Obviously, Kucherov leads the league with 13 goals. Stamkos leads the league with 24 points. So he's getting a lot of goal support. Just their last game against the Panthers, they got 8 goals. They won 8-5. They're not winning games just without letting goals in, but they're still getting it done.
Yeah.
So he's playing well enough for them to win, and I think he will throughout the season. Obviously, his save percentage up right above 920. I think it's 927 currently. So he is stopping most of the pucks, but when goals seem to get by him, they get by him in numbers. Like 8-5 in Florida, 5-4 when they 5-4 their loss against the Devils at the beginning of the season. So they come and go, but I think he has not enough goal support around him and a solid defensive core to make him look good and push Tampa Bay real far.
Yeah, if you go along his whole career, though, he's never had a bad goals against average or save percentage. So has tons of experience already, and and even Tampa Bay's management knew that he's ready. They can easily move Bishop and continue now with Vasilevsky and probably be better off than having Bishop.
Yeah, Bishop's the classic, let the puck hit me instead of move to the puck. His big frame, and he's getting older. So the first thing to go, Wayne Gretzky said it, the first thing you lose is your hand-eye coordination. So I think Vasilevsky's definitely the better option over Bishop. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Bishop has seen his struggles in Dallas this year, but also played some decent hockey. But sticking with Vasilevsky, I think it's about what can he do down the stretch. Because he's got off to that hot start in October, as we said. He's played great on every stage that he's entered. But can he carry an NHL franchise, a franchise like Tampa Bay that could qualify for a cup, be a legitimate contender this year? They're definitely playing like it now. Can he push them over the hump? I'm not sold on it. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen a lot of Vasilevsky play over the years, but I have seen a couple Tampa Bay games this year. And when he's on, he's on. And then when he's not, as I said earlier, the team pots 8 goals. So it doesn't really matter right now. But down the stretch, I think we'll really find out what Vasilevsky's made out of.
Because of international hockey, I think you can see that he steps up his game when games most matter. And I think that's even bigger thing when they come playoff time. Well, I think he'll stand up even bigger.
Yeah, well, one of the games that I actually did watch this year was when they played the Blue Jackets about a month ago, and you could see Vasilevsky was fired up because obviously Sergei Bobrovsky is the goalie. He's the Russian goalie. And it went into Columbus and won that game 2-0. Vasilevsky pitched his first shutout of the season over in Columbus there, and as you said, he steps up for international play. I think that was a game that he really wanted, obviously, going up against countryman Sergei Bobrovsky. So there could be a little rivalry building there, and yeah, maybe he is a big game player. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and stay tuned for our Saturday's picks later on when we'll reconnect with Blue Jackets versus the Lightning. All right, next, what is wrong with Alexander Galchenyuk?
Oh, okay. Peter, you take the lead on this one. This is...
Okay, well, if you go back a little bit more in history, I think it was early 2016, we already heard about Galchenyuk's domestic abuse scenario thing. So that's been already, something in his history. Now, an ex-coach of the Habs, Mario Tremblay, is allegating that he's already been twice in rehab. So we don't know if those are true, but that's another issue that you're going to have to look into with Galchenyuk, is his off-ice problems hurting his on-ice problems. And then the issue I'm not happy about is, has Terrien and the rest of Montreal's coaching staff given him the chances to succeed? And maybe they have, but I think it's been in too small spurts. They keep on giving him very little ice time, too much ice time on, like, say, the fourth line, and less on the maybe power play sometimes to succeed. Does Montreal have enough firepower to help out still a younger guy in Galchenyuk to succeed? And they don't. They don't have enough team to build around him, and as well giving him less ice time isn't going to help him with his motivation to get better, his courage to play better. Confidence, exactly. And if you're playing under 15 minutes a game, that's not going to help either.
No, well, my thing is with Galchenyuk is it's almost like he's been around for a while. Like, you talk to Montreal Canadiens fans, they're always like, oh, hopefully Galchenyuk does it this year. He's only 23, and those quote-unquote drug addictions or rehab, well, playing in Montreal, it's a pressure-filled city. Look at Carey Price. When he first came in, he choked under the pressure. Yaroslav Halak came in during the playoffs. Bingo, bango, Price is back on top. Now, I'm not saying that I think Galchenyuk is that quality of player where he's going to lead his position in the league. But what I do think that Montreal, being the hockey market that it is, has put too much pressure on Galchenyuk from the fans. And I think the coaches are expecting too much from him, which is why he's playing those fourth line. And when nobody believes in you, it's hard to believe in yourself. So all those off-ice issues, I think, stem from poor coaching and poor management and poor player handling in Montreal. Now, Galchenyuk's got to be headstrong and deal with that himself, but I think he's in the wrong environment, and I think that's what's really holding him from breaking through.
The thing is also with the NHL is, and we got like the Duchesne scenario, we've got
next
Drouin scenario previously in year, and we've always had those younger guys, and we're expecting too much out of guys that are in their early 20s or younger to mature. They're still young. They're still kids. You still need a guy like Patrick Kane to grow up a little bit and learn from their faults. They're going to have them, and you're expecting too much out of a young guy to vault him into superstardom, to be that player that quick. You can even look at a player like Nazem Kadri. Maybe I wasn't a fan of him as well, but you need to give him time, and then slowly they find their role on the team if you give them time.
Do you know what it was with Kadri? My opinion with Kadri was he got a coach that actually believed in him. Ron Wilson didn't believe in him. So, like, well, how can you play for somebody that doesn't believe in you? Babcock comes in, and Kadri immediately changes. In my opinion, embraces the checking role, wins faceoffs, and is producing on the score sheet.
When you give them a set role, and they know point blank what their goals are, what they need to achieve, it's easier to achieve them if you have the steps and a short-term goal and a long-term goal.
And as a former player, no, I never played in the NHL, but it feels good knowing what your duty is, knowing that you have a job to do and that your team relies on you to get that done. It's a good feeling. It's not pressure. It's knowing that you're important to the franchise. And I don't think Galchenyuk has that right now.
Yeah, if you could set him on a goal in terms of we need you to score 20 goals or 25 goals, you'll be a third-line guy this year, and you'll get your power play time, then he knows that he might not get that much 5-on-5 ice time, but he will get some power play ice time, and then he can focus on getting those 25 goals. Then he'll achieve that. Then you give him and expand upon that role the following year.
Well, speaking about young players doing much, much better, what's right in New Jersey, Peter?
Everything with those younger players.
Yeah.
We're seeing, of course, Butcher, Bratt, Heischer, and all the other younger players that are still around that have been still trying to go with Zaka and stuff. They're all coming together all at once. And I feel this is kind of like, I feel to myself, I think this is going to be a bit of a Calgary thing going on, where they're overachieving a little too quickly, too early right now, and they might make the playoffs here. I think they might. They might be on the border. And then next year will be a bit of a coming down to earth scenario for
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's from the Calgary comparison. But the one difference is that I have with New Jersey than Calgary 2 years ago when they made that push is they have a legitimate goaltender. Corey Schneider can actually carry a team into the postseason. No, he hasn't done it yet, but he hasn't really gotten the opportunity. If these young kids keep scoring goals, then Schneider could find himself to possibly steal a couple playoff series, unlike Calgary when they had Brian Elliott and
Kerry Ramo and the goalie problems. Yeah, that is true. They got Schneider. He's a good back end goal. I don't know if he's going to steal a couple of series in the playoffs.
Steal a couple of games. Steal a series. I mean, remember, Mike Smith, 2011, straight up snatched that series from the Hawks.
Yeah,
They averaged 50 shots a game, and they won. And the Coyotes were able to win that in 6 games, which is absolutely absurd. But, I mean, sticking with the Devils, their defense, they're moving the puck well. Their offense is clicking. And then Brian Gibbons, this guy, NHL, AHL, NHL, AHL, now a point-per-game player this season in the NHL.
He's one of those suitcase kids. And he's been grinding it in the AHL. I'm like checking out his stats.
He's not a kid either. He was born in '88. He's only 5'8", 175 pounds, and I guess it's just a confidence thing. He's found the right guys to play with, and he's clicking.
Yeah, if you do your hard work, kids, this is what can happen. You might not make it to where you want to go, not even speaking to people who want to make it in the NHL, but anywhere. If you work hard, it will pay off somewhere down the road. And right now it's paying off for Gibbons.
Yeah, well, the front office has done a great job in New Jersey. And they're doing it right, but doing it wrong in the front office, especially from my point of view, Joe Sakic and the Colorado Avalanche, yes, I understand they're one game above 500, sitting 4th place in a very tough division. But what is going on with Matt Duchene? Another trade rumor swirling this week. How many teams is that? Montreal was interested. New York was interested.
LA in the offseason.
LA was interested in the offseason. Now you got Vancouver interested. Mm-hmm. But Sakic hasn't changed. He says he wants a key player, a blue-chip prospect, and a first-round pick. It's not fair to the team anymore, Joe. I'm sorry, but you got these guys who have played well. They really were playing well. They came out of the season to start, but now these distractions I really think are setting in. They've lost 4 out of their last 6. They had a tough road swing. It's the distractions, and they're coming in and out, and it starts with Duchene. It's not fair to Duchene either, and he is not playing poorly. 6 points in 7 games. He's doing all right, but I don't like what's going on in Colorado. I don't think Joe Sakic has handled this as well. Even when Steve Yzerman had that falling out with Drouin, Drouin wasn't a proven NHL player.
Yeah.
You can treat him that certain way. Let him put in his time.
Yeah.
Duchene has put in his time. The guy's won an Olympic gold medal, and yet you're taking him along, like stringing him along. It's not right. It's not fair. And I think the Colorado is going to just start plummeting until they figure out what they need to do in that front office. There's my little rant for this show.
They still have a fairly young core. You got McKinnon, you got my boy Landeskog, and all the rest. Now Rattanen's playing well for them. I think it stems from the beginning of signing Patrick Waugh as their head coach. I think that was the first wrong move. They needed still, a more secure coach. It just seemed like they went for a coach that already had a big name. And yeah, Waugh might have had a good few years coaching in the Q, but it just seemed like a wrong timing for the wrong team right now. That year was such a lucky, unpredictable year that Waugh was just magically winning games in the last second, taking the goalie out with 7 minutes left in the game, and they were stealing games, and then they win the playoffs.
Well, that's almost like the Calgary, New Jersey thing that we were just talking about as well. Pardon me on that. Duchene, obviously, Colorado's played more than 7 games. He got 6 points in the first 7 games, and since has just 1 point, is what my point was. So the team's plummeting right now.
So not many points is your point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boom.
But yeah, and then it's been downhill since then. They weren't having good years after that with Waugh, and then it wasn't working well with him and the players and even management, and we saw how that fell apart. And now they're having different struggles now with the players. I think it's time to move on with Duchene.
You gotta move Duchene. For his sake, for the team's sake,
and with a few other things. So
yeah, Joe Sakic may have ended his career by sticking his hand in the snowblower, But this is almost as a messy situation right now. Well, in honor of Halloween, Peter and I decided not to dress up because, well, you have to look at our faces this entire episode, and that's scary enough for you at home. But we got some of the scariest NHL players, and first we're starting it off with the scariest hitter of all time. Peter, who's your scariest hitter?
I'm going to have to go a little bit on a limb and say Darius Kasparaitis.
Oh.
I think just because you were afraid when he was on the ice, because he wouldn't care where you were if you were in the corners, and he would go in and hit you really bad. He was a dirty, scary hitter.
Well, I got to go with Scott Stevens. That guy literally ended careers such as Eric Lindros, hit him twice, literally murdered him. And then Paul Kariya back in the 03-04 Stanley Cup final. That was a pretty heavy hit. Then Kariya obviously was a little dazed after that. You see him come back to consciousness a little after. But the way Scott Stevens hit people and the intimidation factor that he had when he was on the ice, captained the Devils for umpteen years, 3 Stanley Cups. So I got to go with Scotty Stevens.
Yeah. You came up with segments, so you got the first dibs. And Stevens was the type of guy where when he hit you, you wouldn't remember that he hit you. And today's NHL, Stevens probably wouldn't have a career.
No, he would be that, Kariya had to pass the puck and taken 2 strides before he hit him.
Yeah.
That Lindros hit, Lindros literally chips the puck in and Stevens comes out of nowhere and just cranks him. Oh my goodness, but what a hitter. But who's your dirtiest player of all time, Peter?
All right, here's some treats for you. And my dirtiest guy is gotta be Matthew the Dirty Guy Barnaby. In university, people hated him so much that my buddy Corey, I used to call him Barnaby, and he would be pissed. No, Barnaby was one of the dirtiest for sure. He'd always get you when you didn't want him to. And, we might be talking about the scariest face, and he might have been one of the scariest faces at the same time. He had some scary eyes and a scary face to go with his dirty game. And if you YouTube Barnaby, you'll see some of the dirtiest plays for sure in the NHL.
Well, I've got to go with, in my opinion, the dirtiest play of all time, which makes him the dirtiest player, Todd Bertuzzi. That sucker punch on Steve Moore, not much more needs to be said. I don't think Bertuzzi should have ever played another game in the NHL, let alone be able to lace up his skates again. I think that was so wrong that he was able to come back a couple of years later and lace him back up for Detroit. But I'm leaving it at that. Bertuzzi's.
Do you think that if Bertuzzi didn't fall on top of him, if he just sucker punched him, it wouldn't have been as bad?
I think just the way the angle and where the punch came from, I think it was the punch that broke his. I know going down on him wasn't good, but you see his neck bend back. In those old gloves back in the early 2000s, those things were real hard, like harder than boxing gloves.
Yeah.
I'd rather take a 12-ounce boxing glove to the back of the head than one of those old frickin' CCM things that are packed with plastic and who knows what else was in there. But no, it's just I can't get past that hit. So it's got to be Todd Bertuzzi for me.
All right, who's your most feared goaltender?
I love this guy, Ron Hextall, you big beauty. Not only should you be scared of him because he'll use his stick to chop your head off, he actually was a pretty good goaltender, intimidated other teams. A career save percentage just below 900. Remember, he played through the 80s and part of the 70s. So lots more goals back then. So that's a solid save percentage. And as I said, he would straight up drop. If you didn't like something, he was the goalie, enforcer, coach at some points, just barking at his players. I love Hextall. I love the way he played.
Oh, man. He would be the worst when you're going around the net, and he would just come and swing the stick right around and get you right before you even expected anything to hit you.
Yeah, no.
So watch your shins.
Cheap, but feared.
Yeah, and I think the same thing, if you go to any goalie in this era, I think it would be Mike Smith, and that's my pick. It's hard to explain Mike Smith sometimes, but he's got a big edge to him. Yeah. I think a lot of people... Temper. You like him because of what he brings to the team, but at the same time, if you're not on his side, watch out. There's so many nights where Smith will chop you at the ankles and you won't expect it. And then if he gets a really bad temper going, watch out even more.
Yeah, well, we've seen him throw a stick or two in his day.
And then maybe a blocker or two as well.
Peter, moving into more of a team thing, what is your opinion for the scariest logo or ugliest logo of all time?
I think you're going to have to go way, way, way back for me, and I'm picking the Hamilton Bulldogs. If you go on the internet and take a look, the Hamilton Bulldogs logo of Tigers.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm mixing up the Bulldogs of the AHL team. Actual Tigers, yes, the Tigers.
Not the CFL team, not the Tiger Cats.
Yes.
Hamilton had another team called the Tigers. That logo,
Atrocious. Just atrocious. It's too many lines, and the Tiger not only is scary, but ugly scary.
Yeah, not intimidating scary, but
Yeah.
scary where you see that and you're like, I kind of feel sorry for the guy wearing it.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I go back to 2006 and those Sabre jerseys. Though, yeah, we were talking before that it's a slug.
Yeah.
It's a little yellow thing with a curve and a little white ear or horn, I guess. So a little red eye.
What were you calling? You were calling it a slug.
I think it looks like diarrhea. I think that logo looks like yellow and blue with a little bit of red and a little bit of silver just splat onto the jersey.
Stop getting too specific in how,
Yeah, no, I was going through the color scheme, but no, it's yeah, I think I could have had, if I had a kid and just put him over a jersey, just no diaper, you get the picture. That's the Buffalo Sabres 06 jerseys.
Cool. And then we go with the scariest face.
Face that could be a mask.
Yeah. A mask. Oh.
Gotta be Zdeno Chara. I know you're rocking the Bruins jersey, but the guy's, he's a big guy. And, those really tall guys, sometimes they look a little more disproportionate, but he's got, one eye up here, kind of that, one eye down here, kind of that sloth thing going on from the Goonies. And, his jaw's a little crooked. I could seriously see if my mother were to open up a door and a trick-or-treater kid and she goes out boo with his Chara mask, that kid's running to the end of the driveway back to dad. But Chara's scary, man.
Chara is scary, but I think his aura of Chara and how tall he is helps with him being so scary.
He's the Frankenstein of our picks.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Marty McSorley, and I think that's mainly to do with me growing up and watching Marty McSorley when I was a very young kid, and then also seeing him in the Kings jersey and trying to beat up Wendell Clark and Ty Domi in '93 during that playoffs. And then during that series, I think Wendell Clark got him one or two times good. So he kind of looked like, and this is in the era of the Terminator, he kind of looked Terminator-ish with half of his eye, it seemed like the bone was almost sticking out. So I was like, ooh, every time I saw him, I cringed and I was scared as a kid watching Marty McSorley on the ice.
Yeah, McSorley's pretty legendary. It's one of the reasons why his face got so beat up is because you touch Gretzky, you got to deal with McSorley, and then that was on in Edmonton and then LA. But Peter, it's time for the fun one. We've had our fun, but now it's time for the NHL players to have their fun and their costumes this year. What is your favorite costume of this 2017 Halloween?
Everybody goes out and has some crazy cool costumes, but mine is just what they did with it. And it goes with Bonino and his wife. Nick Bonino, currently on the Predators.
Yep.
I think, and it's funny, you can go on there, I think PK Subban tweeted the video, and they dress up as Nashville Predators fans. And the Predator players are going out dressed up in their Halloween costumes, going out to an event that they planned, and then him and his wife, dressed up as fans, are going up to each player, and they don't have a clue that they're dressed up as fans, and they're asking for autographs from the players. It's hilarious.
And the best thing about it is PK Subban's call on it. Oh, when Ryan Ellis, you got to watch this clip. When Ryan Ellis refuses to sign Bonino's, I guess it was a Bristol board kind of thing. Yeah, a little poster. When he refused to sign it, Subban's call on that is absolutely hilarious. You got to check it out.
Yeah, and thumbs up to Pekka Rinne and the other players who did sign Bonino's.
Pekka Rinne seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
For me, best costume, it's what could have been. Connor Brown on the Maple Leafs had a great idea. Mitch Marner, Matt Martin, Dr. Evil Mini-Me. That would have been so priceless.
Yeah.
Except Girls had to be fun. The girlfriends and said no because they didn't want to dress as
The bots.
Yeah, you can't really say those names, but you've seen Austin Powers. Look it up.
Come on, Connor. Let's do our Saturday's picks.
I think I'm gonna retire.
Yeah. First, we'll review what we did last week, and then we'll give you our games of the week.
I'm gonna skip my review last week. As you guys know, it was my birthday last week, so I'm gonna use that as an excuse why my picks were a little off on Saturday night, as I was. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
So we'll try to continue tweeting out our Saturday's picks, hopefully Friday night or Saturday. And of course, go on jablamhockey.com. You can see our Saturday's picks. You'll see the ones currently still from last week. I was okay. I think I did 7-5, and Connor did 3-9.
39.
30. Yeah.
39 picks right out of a possible
Again,
12.
It's hard when you're trying to call out every single game on Saturday.
Yeah.
We're not picking and choosing. We're not going, okay, we know Pittsburgh's going to hammer, Florida or whatever. We're doing every single game, and it is hard. By the end of the season, usually you edge out and you're slightly better and slightly lower. I've actually been pretty good every year, and I'm continuing to be fairly decent. And Connor's noticing the early struggles of trying to pick out every single game on Saturday.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like to do my betting parlays on the weekends, so I'm usually a lot better. I mean, that first week this season, we both got caught by surprise, and then I had a couple solid weeks, and then this week was just, oh my, bad things all around.
It's hard to predict home teams sometimes losing, especially a team playing so well like Tampa Bay, and then they get beat by the Ducks at home. So there's a lot of those. But sometimes I try to look at if a big player is missing from a lineup, or if they've played versus the current team they're playing, and they played them recently, they might lose that game. Sometimes I look at that.
I like to look at the starting goalies big.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know who's going to start until the day before. Or sometimes most teams do it the day of now to keep the other team on their toes. But usually you have a general idea. And then when suddenly the backup is going in, gosh. A little bit of a tense situation. You know you got that pick wrong. So it's gambling. It's fun, and I promise you, listeners, watchers, viewers. Watchers, good one. I will be better. I promise you that.
Connor did call out last week on the episode. If you didn't recall, he said this looks like the toughest week, and I think he helped himself out by saying that. And I guess he really did have his toughest week. So let's go with this weekend coming up. My two big games that I'm expecting as pretty good games to watch. Number one's got to be Columbus versus Tampa. They're both playing well so far to start the season.
We talked about that matchup earlier in this episode.
Exactly, Bobrovsky versus Vasilevsky. So hopefully they're facing each other again. The two Russian goaltenders, they're amazing. And I think it'll be a great matchup, exciting. They're both high-octane teams. And I'm going to have to go with Tampa.
Going to take Tampa Bay. Well, what's your other big game?
And the other game I think is going to be pretty interesting game. It's a late one. Anaheim, the Ducks versus the San Jose Sharks. And it's the rivalry thing. And I think some of those games people don't know on the East Coast. But they kind of actually hate each other.
Oh, yeah. Those specific, when the same state, you're, what's the drive? 2 hours, I believe? When you a 2 hour drive.
It might be a little bit more. From
Anaheim? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
From Anaheim.
Anaheim, San Jose, yeah.
Yeah, so, still, though, it's pretty close just driving up the coast a little bit up to San Jose when you're down in Anaheim.
Divisional game, and both teams are in the middle. And I think they're both trending up right now. I think the last two games, and I'm going to go back.
Jones had a terrible start to the season, so hopefully he's trending up.
It annoyed me, and I'm now recapping. I was in Boston, and that game, San Jose versus Boston, both teams didn't play very well. They both didn't wake up for the game. It wasn't that exciting. And then San Jose comes out and plays one of their best games of the season against the Leafs. That annoyed the heck out of me. So much.
Spoken like a true Leaf fan. And my game to watch, Leafs are in St. Louis. Leafs goal scoring. Jake Allen's on fire. Something's got to give in that matchup. So I think that game is going to be one stellar game. And then I also have another game to watch, another divisional matchup, Chicago in Minnesota. I mean, it's a classic. How many series have we seen over the last couple of years? Chicago exiting Minnesota, or even last year when Minnesota got the edge over the Hawks. But hey, we'll have to wait and see what's going on there on Saturday.
Well, are you gonna call any? I think Tampa Bay is gonna win that first game. Anaheim, San Jose. I'm gonna go with the Sharks. What are your picks for those two games that you mentioned?
My picks, I gotta go with Toronto's goal scoring. It just the way they score when they need to score. I've said it on this show multiple times. They're too consistent right now. Their confidence is too high. Their goal scoring is on point. So I think the goal scoring is going to win over the goaltending in that one. And then Chicago, I mean, what Devin Dubnyk are we going to see? Because he's been great, and he's been not so great this season. So Minnesota's at home. So it's really going to depend on what Devin Dubnyk shows up for Minnesota. But I'll take Minnesota at home.
I told you, I think Dubnyk's going to kind of falter this year, and that's
he has so far. He has so far, but it's a long season, and he's got a lot of time to bounce back. Especially because that Central Division, a lot of teams are surprising, and there's lots of moves going on. Obviously, St. Louis is out in front by quite a bit, but under them, it's a bit of a smorgasbord, if you want to call it that.
The Jets are playing a little bit better.
Well, they're in second place right now. Yeah. Like, what? Yeah. I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, we all know that they have great prospects, and some guys like Scheifele, so underrated. They're playing very well. Wheeler, he's been wheeling lately.
Well, Connor Hellebuck, too.
Yeah.
Where did Hellebuck come from this season?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of them have high potentials, and maybe that's coming to the forefront right now for the Jets, so that's good for them. All right, before we leave, I want to say a thank you to Nilo Audio. He's our new logo designer, and he did a great job with the new Jablam Hockey logo. It looks fresh, outstanding, huge improvement from our old logo. And if you want, you can follow him and say thank you to him on Twitter, @Nilo Audio, and that's Nilo with N-I-I-L-O. And his last name, Audio, A-U-T-I-O. Thank you, Nilo, for a great job with the logo. And he's going to help us with some other stuff in the future. So thank you. All right, and before we go, again, go on Twitter, @Jablam Hockey. Tweet us, ask us any questions. Check us out. And again, on our website, jablamhockey.com. See you again next week, folks. And happy Halloween.
Trick or treat.